Sato is a risless, pathetic simp and high schooler who gets transported to another world where he's forced to be a hero and save the world. But before he can do that, he has to marry 5 princesses in the most awkward way possible. Deep in the heart of a dense forest, Sato's day takes an unexpected turn as he tries hunting for bugs skittering among trees. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light emanates, stunning him so intensely that he loses his balance and causes him to hug the ground. He decides to investigate the massive bright light, and to his astonishment, he sees an old man and a young girl emerging from a glowing portal. Sato's mind races with disbelief. At first, his tiny brain couldn't comprehend something so complex, and they thought they were aliens sent to Earth. The young girl asks for his name, and Sato, flustered and awkward since he is such an ugly simp who hasn't seen a beauty in his entire career of being an MC in the anime, manages to stutter out a response. The girl introduces herself as Hime, and the old grumpy man as her granddad. She then warns him, however, not to tell anyone of what he saw, and in exchange, she'll be his friend. At that point, the shameless loser immediately feels nature has brought them together and that somehow he has to dedicate his life to protecting her even though she's a total stranger. Fast forward 10 years, Hime makes breakfast for Sato, who feels like a top G having the hottest chick cook for him. As he eats, he can't help but notice the ring pendant hanging around her neck and resting just above her well-rounded melons. The dweeb realizes she isn't a kid anymore and is fully ripe for cultivation. He tells her she's changed a lot and no longer keeps a low profile, and Hime replies that she is a princess after all. He wonders what she means by this, as she has been saying this for years. She suddenly leans forward and the cultured simp thinks he's about to get lucky, but he's disappointed when she removes a grain of rice from his chin and tells him he eats like a donkey. She slowly puts the grain of rice in her mouth, immediately causing him to feel embarrassed as his magnum charges at full capacity. On their way to school, he can't stop thinking about the ring pendant and remembers her telling him it's important and will be given to the one she exchanges marital vows with. Hime notices him staring and teases him that even in his dreams, he won't get the ring. And at that point, he realizes that he's been delulu, thinking she wasn't interested in marrying him. Later at school, a psycho with a big head laments about how summer break starts and he still hasn't bagged any baddies to spend summer with because he's freaking ugly. He tells Sato how lucky he is to spend all his time with Hime, and just as he continues to lament, Sato gets a message from Hime asking him to accompany her to the summer festival, and immediately thinks it would be a date. That evening, he meets Hime and they start walking through the festival together. Hime reminisces about how he used to protect her and calls him her hero, but now he's a zero. Later, as they watch the fireworks, Sato decides it's the perfect moment to confess his feelings, but before he can open up about it, he's interrupted by Firework-kun. She suddenly reveals that she wanted to tell him something for a while, and he wonders if she also feels the same way for him. She shockingly reveals that she's going to be moving. Later that night, Sato can't stop thinking about Hime leaving. He suddenly sees a bright light through the window, which is similar to what he saw 10 years ago. He immediately follows it and he finds Hime entering a portal, and he suddenly remembers. He begs her not to leave, but she explains she's not moving away, but going to another world to get married. Devastated, Sato decides to ditch his friends, family, and life all for a baddie, and follows her through a portal. Then he lands in the middle of a wedding ceremony, and as Hime is about to kiss Prince Mars, Sato screams her name like a jilted lover. Hime looks at him in wonder. At that instant, an abyss monster suddenly appears, and Sato realizes he's made a mistake and would have remained in his lame ex-world. Hime's grandfather tries to intervene but is slapped away like a useless fruit fly and dashed to the wall, causing him to say that they really need the Ring of Light. He urges Hime to give the Ring of Light to Mars, but she runs to Sato, kissing him and giving him the ring on an impulse amidst a powerful light. The old man is left in shock, but Prince Mars seems cool with this and immediately gives Sato a sword to fight. However, the dummy admires the beautifully crafted sword, thinking it's just a decoration. But as the monster charges at him, he realizes he wielded the blade for the sole reason of battle. As he wielded the sword to fight, it emanated a blinding light, and at that instant, he slashed the monster to the shock of everyone, including himself, before passing out. Sato wakes up the following day in a royal bed with Hime by his side. She explains they are now married in the eyes of her people. He's thrilled, thinking she loves him, but she clarifies he's just a third wheel and an afterthought. Later, the people demand to see the Ring King and hero. Sato, unsure of what to say to the large gathering, babbles like a baby, but somehow the fish-brained people understand him and cheer anyway. Later, as he bathes, Hime approaches him, apologizing for dragging him into her kingdom's mess. He assures her he's happy to protect her and stay by her side. In a perverted move, he decides to have a glance at her well-rounded cannons, but she reminds him that the wedding is just for show and he shouldn't take it seriously. At that moment, the castle bell rang, and Sato unknowingly leaps up, displaying his long sword in 4K, and Hime is stunned at how long his sword was. As they hurried to the castle to find the reason the bell rang, a knight told them that several monsters from the abyss were attacking the castle and begged him as the Ring King to protect them. Hime tells Sato that he's still a newbie and not yet ready for battle, but her granddad tells her no one gives a shit, and since he wears the ring, he must perform the duties of the Ring King. Upon hearing this, Sato boosts his confidence and welcomes a battle axe, which glows as he holds it, and he begins reciting a boring lecture about love and friendship, which makes Hime dash at him and stick her tongue down his throat. Sato saves a scared maiden from being isekai by slashing the ugly monster into halves with his axe, obliterating it with a swing. At that point, he felt he had a bit more confidence since he didn't pass out like last time. The old man tells him it was because of a kiss he shared with the princess, and the deeper the bond, the stronger he gets. But he still feels his worthless Bumstead won't last long and will meet his maker pretty soon. However, Sato tells him he heard the people call him Asparagus, but the old man reaffirms him that his name was Alabaster. Their conversation is cut short by a levitating demon. Sato notices this demon is different from the ones he fought before. Alabaster identifies it as a Knight of the Abyss King, a powerful monster capable of wielding magic, and suggests they scram once they start to lose. Sato charges at the demon, only to be blown back by a gust of wind, slamming him against the wall and breaking his axe. Afraid to meet their doom, Alabaster yells at Sato to move his Bumstead and the time to scram is now. As they run, the demon summons two winged ferocious fiends that chase them. Alabaster decides to buy Sato some time, raising a stone wall like an earthbender to block the demon's path. However, they are soon pincered by the Knight of the Abyss. Just then, Mars lands dramatically, covering the Abyss Knight with a cloth and setting it ablaze. He instructs them to get into a carriage and flee the castle. Sato hesitates, asking about Hime, but Mars assures him that she is safe. In the carriage, Sato finds Hime and thanks Mars for rescuing their soul and body from being crushed by the demon. Sato asks Alabaster why he couldn't defeat the Night Demon, and Alabaster reveals that Sato is weak and completely useless, and needs the power of the 4 other rings to reach his full potential. Realizing this means marrying 4 more princesses. Sato is stunned. Later that night, they reached an inn and lodge. Alabaster decides to explain the legend of the Ring King to Sato. Long ago, the world was on the verge of succumbing to the dark powers of the Abyss. The Ring King forged 5 rings imbued with magic, the rings of light, fire, water, earth, and wind. With these rings, he defeated the Abyss King. Afterward, the 5 princesses he married passed the rings through their generations within the 5 nations. With the return of the Abyss King, the Ring King must obtain the 5 rings and use their power to seal the abyss. Sometime later, Mars tells Sato he's relieved Hime chose him to be Ring King, not wanting such a vast responsibility himself. Sato steps out looking for Hime and finds her crying after she stormed out of the room. She saw the injuries on Sato's back and feels guilty for bringing him into her problems. He reassures her, confessing his love and saying he's in her world because he wants to be with her. The following day, Alabaster informs them that they are heading to an elven village called Aramka Kingdom, surrounded by the Tempest Wall of Storms to find the Ring of Wind. On their way, they are attacked by a ferocious giant bear. Sato thinks it's an Abyss King monster, but Alabaster tells him it's just a forest beast. Sato tries to get friendly with it, prompting Hime to wonder if this is the alpha male she really chose to be Ring King. At that instant, the ferocious bear nearly bites his useless head off. As it chases them, they jump and cross the Tempest Wall and hide in a cave. They are then approached by 2 elves who take them to the palace. On getting to the palace, they meet the elven princess who is hiding behind the throne. She asks Sato and Hime if they are developing plot, surprising Hime, who wonders if this creep is intoxicated. They tell her they seek the Ring of Wind. Upon hearing that, she flees. Before long, a lanky elf with enormous ears approaches them. He introduces himself as Jade, the older brother of the awkward elf princess Nephritis. Instantly, with a tip of the finger, he summons guards to arrest Sato and imprison him while the rest are given the 5-star treatment. Later on, Sato demands to know why he's imprisoned, and Jade explains to him that Nephritis is still timid and isn't accustomed to strangers, and even though she is 54 years of age, she is still a child at heart. Upon hearing this, Sato got discouraged because he's not into cougars. However, Jade tells him he would be locked up in the cell for 80 years, leaving Sato in shock, who thought by then his teeth would have fallen out. Jade's advisor questions his decision to imprison the Ring King, but Jade, confident in their Tempest Wall, tells him he doesn't give a damn about the Ring King. 3 days later, while Sato contemplates his life decisions in jail, an elf named Peridot interrupts his thoughts. She asks him what he stands to gain by gathering the 5 rings, absolute power, or just clapping beautiful princess's cheeks. Sato replies he just wants to live happily with Hime. She thinks it's a stupid reason for having such a great power. Just then, with a flick of her wrist and a touch of the wall, she opened a passageway inside the prison and asked him to follow her. They walked for a bit and arrived at a wind temple, where the Ring of Wind is kept. Sato wonders why the ring is on the fingers of the statue instead of Nephritis. Just then, a nutcase creeps in while Sato and Peridot go in hiding. The creeping nutcase results to be Nephritis. She talked to the statue of her parents, telling them that the Ring King was about to take her and the ring, but she would keep their promise, stating that she would not go outside the Ramka Kingdom. Peridot reveals that the statues use the ring's power to create the Tempest Wall protecting the village. Sato, shocked, makes a noise, alerting Nephritis. Trying to cover it up, he makes bird noises, but Peridot tells him he's an idiot, and there's no birds in the Wind Temple. Nephritis orders the intruders to reveal themselves, and Sato steps out. Upon seeing him, Nephritis faints. Peridot instructs Sato to carry Nephritis, and they head to her manor. Nephritis wakes and, seeing Sato, vomits in fear. Jade, realizing that Sato has escaped, grows furious, but Peridot lies, saying that Nephritis and Sato had eloped, causing Jade to cry a river like Justin Timberlake. Determined, Jade decides not to give Nephritis the ring and orders a search of Peridot's manor. At the manor, Sato and Nephritis were hitting it firmly, with Nephritis asking about his world and he describes it as peaceful. She, though scared of the outside, dreams of visiting it. Excited, she begs Sato to take her there. Just then, Jade arrives, calling for Nephritis. She walks away with him, but not before declaring the Ring King is not who Jade thinks he is. Jade is about to give Sato 1,000 years of pain, but Peridot intervenes, taking responsibility for him. Later that day, Peridot narrates the village's history to Sato and Hime. She explains how Nephritis' aunt, the actual ring bearer, fell in love with an outsider, a human. The elves, fearing the outsider would take the ring, were delighted after not seeing him anymore, causing Nephritis' aunts to curse the village and exile herself. Her parents inherited the ring, and scared of the curse, they created the Tempest Wall surrounding the kingdom, making Nephritis promise to never leave. The following day, Alabaster urges Sato and his companions to depart from the Ramka Kingdom since the elusive Ring of Wind remains out of reach. Jade, witnessing their departure with much delight, receives dire news. Monsters have breached the supposedly impenetrable Tempest Wall and are advancing toward the palace. Sato and his group hastily turn back, realizing the impending danger to the city they just left behind. They witness winged abyss monsters soaring toward the castle and resolve to defend the city and safeguard the precious Ring of Wind. At the Wind Temple, the fearsome Abyss Knight appears with the intent of claiming the ring, and Jade confronts the demon with determination, but his bravery proves insufficient against the Abyss Knight's formidable power. As Jade is flung against the temple wall by a gust summoned by the demon, Alabaster intervenes just in time to save him. Sato launched an attack and charged at the demon, but was sent flying by a gust of wind from the demon's finger. Sato tries charging again at the monster, but this time, he is slashed by the monster's sharp wind and he falls to the ground wounded. Hime realizes that if she doesn't act fast, she'll have to visit Sato in the afterlife. She dashes outside the Wind Temple amidst tears and begs Nephritis to marry Sato so he can harness the power of both rings and defeat this monster that is proving quite difficult. Just as she thought Nephritis won't budge, Nephritis agreed to marry Sato. Meanwhile, Peridot, knowing Hime's ideas, assists Sato in stalling the advancing monsters until his wife arrives. Hime and Nephritis, wielding newfound resolve and the power of the rings, both wield Thor's hammer as they both smash the statue of Nephritis' parents. And to the dismay of Jade, the shattering of the statue causes the Ring of Wind to fall into their hands. At the same time, the Tempest Wall protecting the village dissipated. Nephritis picks up the rings, dashes and leaps towards Sato and kisses him, placing the rings on their fingers. Bright and intense blinding light emanates from them, which makes all the winged abyss monsters vanish, leaving behind the Abyss Knight, who falls to the ground at the sight of light. Emboldened by their victory, Alabaster signals Sato to confront Abyss Knight directly. Sato charges at the Abyss Knight while the demon summons a whirlwind, but Sato restrains it with the power of the rings and then impales the face of the Abyss Knight, cracking the core, and Sato faints instantly. The following morning, Sato awakens to the concerned gazes of his two baddies, Hime and Nephritis, relieved to find him safe. As they gather their bearings, Peridot arrives with unexpected news. Nephritis' long-forgotten aunt, Princess Smaragdi, the true bearer of the Ring of Wind, emerges from the shadows. Peridot reveals that she was the face behind the Abyss Knight he defeated, leaving him in shock. She happened to be influenced by a dark ring, which the Abyss King manipulated her into obtaining. Sato asks if they really don't know much about the Abyss King, to which Peridot replies that all they know is that it was said that after the legendary battle with the Ring King, he lost his body and his soul was sealed away in Vana. Alabaster adds that even though no one has seen him, his minions attack people and his black rings give birth to Abyss Knights. Nephritis proposes to visit a spring of healing to restore Sato's strength. Meanwhile, Princess Smaragdi seeks out Alabaster because he's a sage, and asks him if he knows the whereabouts of her loved one. Alabaster presents her with a gift, a token she had given to the traveler many years ago. Emotionally moved, Alabaster shares that he has known this traveler for a long time, and he always wished for her happiness, emphasizing that the traveler would never want her to be ostracized by her people. The next day, as Sato and his companions prepare to leave Ramka, they hear Nephritis scream in the distance. She approaches them and insists on accompanying her husband on his journey, eager to see the world. Meanwhile, Peridot had a conversation with Princess Smaragdi. During their discussion, Smaragdi overhears a conversation between two random dudes, mentioning Sage Alabaster leaving the city with the Ring King. Realization dawns on her. Alabaster, her lost love, is still alive and has been by her side all along. Which land will Sato head next to seek a princess? Days later, deep in the forest, Sato, his wives, the old grumpy grandpa, and Mars sit and discuss their next move. Mars inquires from Alabaster which nation they will head to next to acquire the ring, so Alabaster replies that they intend to go to the land of the water people, the nation of dragon folks. Meanwhile, Hime is jealous of the attention Sato is showing Nephritis and is unable to hold it in any longer. She yells at him to give her some of his time since she was his first wife before Nephritis stole him away from her. Suddenly, they hear a loud moving sound and see a moving town approaching. Alabaster tells them it is the land of fire, Nidakida, the nation of the cat people. He then suggests they go into the city and retrieve the Ring of Fire from the cat people's princess and hold off on the water people, which makes Mars a little sad. Alabaster signals to the moving town and a ladder is dropped to enable them to enter, so they all climb it. At that point, Nephritis, frightened by heights, wishes them farewell and hopes they live better lives. But Sato shakes the delusion out of her, and Hime offers to help her with her phobia. As the girls climb, the nasty simp following behind in a sus move decides to record Hime's beautiful, well-rounded plot and is so fixated that he nearly hugs the ground. Afterward, they discover an open market in the town, and Alabaster insists they seek an audience with the Maiden of the Ring of Fire. Nephritis, who hasn't been to the outside world before, gets lost as she gets to see ancient books and artifacts, but is found by Hime. They decide to find their way back to the team but are approached by a cat girl who informs them that their friends can only be found at the arena, the biggest landmark in the town. Meanwhile, Sato, extremely nervous about the disappearance of his wives, is told to calm the heck down by Alabaster, who assures him that Nidakida is a very safe place and the only place they would be is in the arena where the Fire Princess is. Following this, two cat ladies stare intently at them, and Mars mentions to Sato that the girls are staring because the cat people see them as WWE superstars. Sato, feeling highly impressed with his John Cena physique, thinks the cat baddies could only be looking at him because he's a top G. But to his disappointment, the cat girls surround Mars and ask for a taste of his cream, stunning Sato, who realizes that no one except his mother gives a crap about him. Mars, trying to be considerate, tells the baddies that Sato is far stronger than him, but they tell him to stop capping as Sato looks like a malnourished pigeon. Later on, Hime and Nephritis arrive at the arena and meet up with Sato and the guys in the company of the pretty cat ladies. Hime approaches Sato and tells him his end is near finally, as a lowly loser just got beaten to a pulp by the Fire Princess, which made Sato shiver in fear. At that moment, Sato is asked to enter the arena, and as he enters, he witnesses the princess fighting an ugly weakling whom she swiftly incapacitates faster than he can subscribe and hit the notification bell. The princess then calls on the next loser who wants to date her to prove his worth, and just then, she glances at the rings on Sato's fingers, recognizing him as the Ring King. She then informs him that if he wants to be her husband, he needs to be stronger than her. Instantly, she charges at an impeccable speed and knocks Sato down in 2 seconds. Thinking he died for the right cause, his wives rush towards him to confirm if he is finally dead, while the Ring Princess mocks him for being a pathetic weakling and demands to know how he will face the monsters of the Abyss if he cannot defeat her. She then asks him to come another day when he is fully prepared. The next day, the goody two-shoes trains hard with Mars to prove he is man enough to clap the Fire Princess, but Mars easily puts him down. Just then, an ugly cat dude brings breakfast and informs Sato to eat like a useless glutton to have the strength to face Granart, the Fire Princess. The cat dude further explains that all the men in the nation are beta males and no match for the princess, so she starts seeking out people willing to challenge her from all around the world. Upon hearing this, Sato asks Alabaster if he can conquer her, and Alabaster tells him that even in his dreams, he won't be able to achieve such a feat. He further informs him that his only trump card is to use the ring's powers to his advantage. However, Sato thinks it will be a weak move to use magic to beat a woman, but Alabaster tells him that's the only way, as he is far from capable of defeating Granart without magic. The Catboy then suggests that Sato eat up to have the needed strength for the humongous task ahead, so Sato stuffs food into his pit face while his wives stare at him in disgust, never believing they could end up with such a mannerless lowlife. That night, Mars invites Sato to enjoy a full body massage, and upon arriving at the massage parlor, Sato sees beautiful cat girls and feels like he is in heaven. One of the cat girls asks if he wants a massage, and he excitedly accepts. Just then, an ugly, muscular cat beast grabs him and gives him the massage of his life. Following this, Granart enters the massage parlor with beautiful curves and massive cherries. She demands Sato give her an extensive massage as she removes her plot armor and gives him a free subscription to her OnlyFans in 4K, which momentarily switches off Sato's brain. She then asks the nervous simp to caress her plots, and he immediately grabs her thick, Kim Kardashian thighs and massages up to her fat pillows, which activates his millimeter Peter. A few minutes later, Granart reveals that she is growing tired of fighting weaklings daily, and he is the Ring King. She must serve him and give him full body benefits. She further reveals that she wouldn't mind lending him a hand so he can defeat her, promising to lose intentionally the next time he challenges her. The next morning, Sato wakes up Nefritas holding his magnum, suggesting she heals his wounded body. However, she tries seducing him with her large cannons, but he declines her as per top G guidelines, ditching the magnum-starved elf, and he walks away, leaving her wishing he had stuck his sausage in her rice cake. The day of the duel arrives, and the Colosseum is packed with people eager to see the much-anticipated fight between the princess and the Ring King. As Sato approaches the arena, he passes a defeated knight who complains about the princess having a field day with his ass. The sulking knight suddenly hears a voice from a black ring glowing with dark energy, which offers him power, so the knight puts on the ring and is immediately demon-possessed. On the other hand, Sato and Granart face off, with Sato assuring her that he will make her acknowledge him and call him daddy. As the duel is about to commence, the demon-possessed knight suddenly returns to the arena and launches at Sato. At that moment, Granart attacks the knight, removing his helmet and saving Sato from entering Nirvana. The enraged knight summons abyss fire monsters, one of which is quickly dealt with by a cat-killing warrior. That instant, Granart orders her knights to evacuate the district and not let any monsters escape. She then charges at the demon-possessed knight, but her efforts are futile against the fire enveloping the possessed knight. Sato then decides to use the wind ring to quench the fire and charges at the knight, but he is sent flying into a wall like a useless bone. Following this, Granart insists on fighting the knight alone, but Sato declines to be sidelined like a worthless piece of trash. So, he suggests luring the knight close and focusing on blowing away the flames with the ring's power so Granart can defeat him. Sato lures the knight at that moment by showing his rings and uses the wind ring's magic to quench the fire. Granart slashes through the knight, and Sato delivers the finishing blow, eliminating him. The black ring then falls from the knight's fingers, which makes Sato realize an evil ring has possessed him. Shortly after, Granart, impressed, offers to be Sato's woman after realizing that even though he's an idiot now, there's a possibility of him being a lesser idiot in the future. But Sato declines, insisting he wants to earn her respect by continuing the duel. Following that, they proceed with the duel as Granart rushes at him with incredible speed. Sato struggles to keep up. On the other hand, Hime thinks the fight is pointless since Granart has already agreed to be his wife, but Nefritas urges her to cheer for Sato, believing he is fighting to prove himself worthy. Seeing his failure to keep up with her move, Granart then urges Sato to use the ring's power, but he insists on using his strength to prove his worth and not wanting to rely on borrowed power from his wives and look like a weakling. Upon hearing this, Hime, moved by his determination, promises to allow him to clap her from behind while grabbing her melons. At that moment, Sato's motivation increases, and then he hears a voice from the rings offering to help predict Granart's moves. As she charges again, the voice guides him, and he manages to slice Granart, forcing her to surrender. Defeated for the first time by a man, Granart acknowledges Sato as her husband and offers him her ring, while shoving her wiener deep down his throat. She then insists on commencing baby-making plot right there, but Sato informs her to chill her watery bum down as he had prior engagement with Hime. That night, Hime prepares for plot development with Sato, and as she pulls him towards her plot so they can climax together, the donkey falls into a peaceful slumber while grabbing her melons. Later that night, Hime, desperate to keep her man from her desperate fellow wives, asks Sato what he wants her to do. Bro asks her to rub her melons, and she instructs him to proceed. That instant, he grabs her plot and squeezes like his life is on the line, under the watchful eyes of Granart and Nephritis. Granart, needing some action, yells at Sato for being slow and expects him to ravish Hime. She then jumps on Sato, demanding fast action, but is smacked with a stool by Hime and Nephritis to cool off her steam. Before long, Sato, his wives, and Alabaster arrive at the land of water, Masa. As they wonder where Mars is gone, a girl suddenly approaches them and asks Sato if he is the Ring King. Upon confirming his identity, she gives him a bouquet and surprises him with a kiss, revealing that she is the Water Princess and they are joined in holy matrimony as husband and wife. At that moment, the Ring of Water appears on Sato's finger as the Water Princess laughs hysterically and introduces herself as Sapphire. Shortly after, a random knight appears and demands Sapphire return to the palace. She, however, informs him she is married to the Ring King and cannot be ordered around. So, the knight asks them to come to the palace. On their way to the palace, Sapphire reveals that the Water Kingdom is under the oppression of the Jeopardy Empire, which uses the pretext of protecting them from abyss monsters to enslave them and fill their streets with the Imperial Army. She further reveals that the knight from earlier who asked them to come to the palace is Mars's older brother Sluder, the crown prince of the Jeopardy Empire. As they arrive at the palace, they hear a loud sound, and at that moment, Sapphire informs them that they are under abyss attack. Just then, a monstrous giant octopus appears and charges its tentacles at Sato, who activates the ring's power, causing a powerful explosion. Sato, holding a fiery blade, leaps high and slices the octopus in one strike, obliterating it instantly. Following this, they enter the palace and are greeted by the king, whose face looks worse than human waste. Sapphire soon introduces Sato as her husband to her father and informs him she has given the Ring of Water to Sato. Upon hearing this, the king becomes a clown, but is carried away by a woman oozing an evil aura. Seeing the evil aura, Sato asks Sapphire who the woman is, and she tells him she is the palace's oracle. Later, as they walk through the palace, a girl runs towards them, asking Sapphire why she married the Ring King without her permission. Sapphire then introduces the girl as her twin sister, Sapphira, and informs her that she married the Ring King so she wouldn't have to. Just then, Mars interrupts and begs Sapphira to forgive him, confessing he has never forgotten the love they once shared. Sapphira screams and runs off, and Mars chases after her. With everyone dumbfounded about what in the Looney Tunes had just happened, Sapphira reveals that Mars and Sapphire once loved each other and then narrates their sentimental story. Long ago, the Jeopardy Empire wasn't satisfied with just their human territories, so they launched an invasion into Masa, the land of water. They soon realized they couldn't conquer the water people, so they turned to diplomacy and sent Mars, the second prince of the empire, to learn the wisdom and history of the water people to foster relations. However, Mars and Sapphire soon became very close, and their feelings were true until Mars was tasked with a secret mission to inform the empire of Masa's inner workings. As he was leaving the land of water, Sapphire begged him to follow, but he left, promising to return after becoming the Ring King and marrying her. However, Mars abandoned the role of the Ring King and entrusted it to Sato, thus breaking his vow to Sapphire. Sapphira further reveals that shortly after, the Oracle appeared with her prophecies, which nobody initially believed. Over the years, the prophecies soon proved true and relevant in driving out the Abyss monsters. Upon realizing the importance of the Oracle to the kingdom, the king placed the Oracle at his side, but since then, he has gone mental. Later that night, the Oracle orders 3 assassins to eliminate the Ring King and take his rings. Afterwards, 2 of the assassins try to eliminate Sato while he sleeps, but they are easily defeated by a cat woman, who discovers they are not elves, but humans sent by the Empire. At that moment, the assassins launch a smoke bomb and vanish. The next morning, the last assassin tries to shoot an arrow at Sato, but Alabaster uses his magic to halt it. Later that night, Mars confronts his brother, Sluder, telling him to reconsider his stance in Masa and stop meddling in their affairs. Sluder declines, saying the Emperor decides to send reinforcements to the Land of Water. He also informs Mars that he hasn't been forgiven for disobeying the order to become the Ring King, but suggests Mars to continue the good work of reporting the Ring King's actions to the Empire. Following this, the Oracle approaches Mars, telling him to steal the rings from Sato, as it is the Imperial Majesty's will. She further warns him that an abyss attack is imminent and he should use the cover of the battle to steal the ring and isekai the Ring King. She also tells him to correct his mistake of not becoming the Ring King to earn the Emperor's forgiveness and obtain the princess he loves. That instant, she gives him a sword that can twist the flow of magic to use against Sato. However, Mars declines the offer, but the ugly witch casts a spell on him and hypnotizes him. The next morning, Mars wakes up with the witch's spell and hypnosis still affecting him. He sets off on his mission, haunted by memories of his father calling him a worthless failure and urging him to not screw up his chances of becoming the Ring King. As he walks, he sees Saphira displaying all her benefits, and upon noticing his presence, she runs off. So, Mars concludes that he is truly a failure who has lost everything, which hardens his resolve to complete the mission given to him by the witch. Meanwhile, Sluder and some knights of Masa embark on a mission to defeat a monster on the outskirts of the city. As they engage the beast, a knight informs Sluder that a giant monster has appeared outside the expected area and will soon head toward the Masa Palace, but Sluder suggests they do nothing and focus on the mission. A few minutes later, a terrifying monster with powerful tentacles emerges at the palace, stunning Sato and Alabaster. At that instant, Mars, still hypnotized, charges at Sato, attempting to eliminate him, but Sato dodges the attack and is stunned by Mars's killing intent. At the same time, the monster advances towards them, and Alabaster decides to fend the beast off on his own while Sato deals with Mars. Mars lunges forward, and this time, their swords clash. He nearly slices Sato's gut, but misses as Sato falls to the ground, and then he assures Sato that he will end his life for the Empire's sake. At that moment, Alabaster informs Sato that Mars isn't in the right frame of mind and is probably being controlled by something. Sato, who has already seen his life flash before his eyes, asks Alabaster what can be done, and wonders if pouring holy water on Mars will end the hypnosis. Still, Alabaster tells him he has no idea, prompting Sato to call him a useless old man who is never useful when it really matters. However, Mars continues his onslaught to end Sato quickly, but Sato evades his attack and then uses the ring's power to send an energy blast, which Mars deflects effortlessly. Just then, the voice from the ring tells Sato that he can eliminate Mars with the power of the ring, but Sato is too weak and doesn't want to unalive Mars, so the voice calls him a foolish weakling who would rather be isekai'd by his enemy. Sato then notices something is off and realizes that as good as Mars' swordsmanship is, he should have been injured by now. If he hasn't been injured, it shows that Mars is still himself and is trying to fight the hypnosis. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Sato's wives receive information that Mars is trying to kill their hot love and turn him cold. Upon hearing this, they return to the balcony and watch the duel. At the same time, Mars charges at Sato again, but this time, Sato leaves himself undefended and Mars hesitates. Instead of cutting off Sato's head, he slices his arm, confirming Sato's suspicion that Mars is still fighting the hypnosis. At that point, Mars surrenders and asks Sato to end his life, saying it is meaningless and worthless, but Sato encourages him to shoot for the stars because even if he misses, he will somehow land among his dreams. However, Mars doesn't understand a word the idiot just said but dismisses it all the same. Sato breaks the gem on the evil sword at that moment, freeing Mars from the hypnosis. The Oracle, noticing that Mars has been freed from her spell, controls the abyss monster to attack. The monster advances, breaking through the ground and charging toward Hime, but Granart slices off one of its tentacles. The beast then grabs Saphira with another tentacle and begins to squeeze the life out of her. Suddenly, the Oracle appears and demands Sato trade the ring for Saphira's life. That instant, Mars is determined to be free from everyone's expectations and live his own life. So he asks Saphira to marry him, stunning everyone, including the Halloween witch. Utilizing this distraction, Sato uses the fiery blade of the ring to slice the tentacle holding Saphira hostage, causing the Oracle to feel pain as if it were her own body. The monster soon drops Saphira, and Mars catches her. Enraged, the Oracle transforms into an uglier version of the beast, revealing her true form. At that moment, Sapphire kisses Sato, unleashing the maximum water power of the ring as she transforms into a mighty, ferocious monster and devours the Oracle monster. Realizing her plan has been ruined, the Oracle vanishes, and Sapphire returns to her true form without any plot armor. Later that day, the Masa King, now sane after the Oracle's disappearance, freed his mind from her manipulation. The king promises to lend Sato all the power and help he needs from the Water People. He also informs Sluder that the Imperial capital's help will no longer be required in Masa as they are fit to fight the Abyss monsters on their own whenever they return. After this, Mars then approaches the king, asking for his support in marrying Sapphira, which the king accepts. Sluder then congratulates Mars and informs him he is returning to the Imperial capital, wishing Mars can come one day too. That night, the Ugly Witch reports her failure to the Imperial Majesty and asks him to combine powers with her to control the monsters and gain more nations. As she tries to seduce the Majesty to manipulate him, the old man sees through her scheme, slices her gut, and tells her that her ways are no longer needed. He declares that he will exterminate anyone in his way, be it the Abyss King or the Ring King. Will Sato be able to defeat the evil Imperial Majesty and stop his devious plan of controlling all the nations? If you want the next part, comment ring. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video.